name is Beck and welcome to the All Kinds of Heroes book tag. It's taken me like 6 tries to get that tag name right, but I want to thank Lovely Day with Holly for tagging me to do this tag. It was actually quite difficult and I had to go and research all of my questions before sitting down to film this video, so not one that you can just sit down and bash out, but one that is worthwhile when you come to consider my answers. I've tried to vary them a little bit, so let's get into it. Question number 1 is, in the shadows, quiet hero who is more in the shadows than the spotlight. Now for me that's Fitz from the Farseer trilogy, or from The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. Fitz is a character who is a bastard son of a prince, and for that reason, they can't really get rid of him because he's got a claim to royalty, and they can't just let him do what he wants because he could be used as kind of like a power play or used for ransom or something against the current throne. So they have to take him in and kind of train him up, but they keep him out of sight, out of mind at the same time. So when this question was like in the shadows, it really made me think of Fitz, because when you read that book, at least book 1 and the trilogy as well, you really get that sense of loneliness from him. And he starts out as like a 5 or 6 year old boy, and he grows as the story progresses, and the story kind of comes more into focus in terms of the world building and the politics as Fitz ages and realizes things. And I loved that about the series. So you feel like you're in the margins and then you slowly get involved with him. So Fitz definitely fitted this question, and he was the first one, actually surprisingly the first one that came to mind when I know I said this tag was difficult. So for the first question I lied, that was easier for me, but it got more difficult as the tag progressed. Question number 2 is I'm no hero, and it's a hero who doesn't acknowledge being one. And that for me is Kaladin from the Stormlight Archive. Kaladin is the son who is trained in the first book to become a soldier, but he's also trained equally by his father to be a surgeon. So he's got the ability to heal, but he's also conscripted to kill. So that dichotomy really lives and breathes in him, and he really struggles for it over the course of his entire life. And so because this is such a deep struggle for him, he has a deep depression as well, and he does not see himself in the light at all. He sees himself as someone who is not worth the light and not worth living. And so when it came to this question, he felt really fitting, because in no ways does he see himself as the hero. He sees himself as kind of the inverse. Like whenever he tries to do something good, someone suffers for it, and usually it's him and the people he's trying to protect. So he is a hero, but like a diamond in the rough, and I really love him, and he's got such deep character growth, and he's just one of my favorite characters ever. He's also one of the most cinematic characters in Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive. So next we've got Weak in the Knees, which is a swoon-worthy hero, and I hate these questions. Who is your new fictional crush? Who is a swoon-worthy hero? I don't know, everyone's cool, I'm not sure. So I had to pick one for this question, right? So I just picked someone who was in one of my most recent reads, and for me that is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Ziala in this book is a sea captain who is also part teak, so she's got the ability to kind of commune with and control the sea and water in general. I think she's amazing, and she's introduced in the first book because she's found this woman at a bar, gone back home with her, and then the husband of the woman has come home and she's had to run off while she's still drunk, and she's been arrested for fighting. So she's already a mess as you start this book, and it just gets better. I really like her, and she carried a bunch of the perspectives in this book for me. Not that this was bad by any means, but she was probably one of my favorite perspectives, even though this book was great. So I would recommend this because Ziala is excellent, and so are all of the other characters in this book. Next up is Hate to Love, which is a hero that you hated at the beginning of a book, but then you loved by the end. And I know this series is very divisive, which is why I ended up settling on it for this question. And it's the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. The first book is The Black Prism. In this book, Kip is the character that I'm choosing for this question because he drove me nuts. He drove me absolutely nuts because he's 16 in the first book. He's this typical boy who is just very full of himself and just very like, oh my God, women. And so when you pick up a book that is a fantasy book, usually written by a male author, pretty much all of the time, I should say, you're going to get a character like Kip. But thankfully, there is a whole bunch of other perspectives. And so these characters see each other. And so you get an outsider perspective on what this character is witnessing, interacting with, and going through. So when it came to developing Kip, I appreciated his inward perspective and then also the outward perspective on him as well, if that makes sense. So you got different facets of him depending on who you are reading from. And I found that really intriguing and really valuable because naturally all of your characters are going to be flawed. And it's a really easy way to shine a light on those flaws when you're looking at them from the outside. So it was a really clever move from Brent Weeks' part, and that's why I stuck to the series, because he was so detail oriented and I really appreciated that. Also, the magic system is amazing with different color that you can transmute from light into physical objects. So cool. So yes, Kip would definitely be my perfect answer to this question because he drove me nuts at the beginning. Next up is inspire to action, and this is a hero who has inspired you to want to make a difference in the real world. And this one for me is another recent read, and it's the Tea Dragon Society. Greta is the main character in this, and she's trying to learn this old tradition from her mothers, and then she's also keen on learning the tea dragon way of doing things. So she's caught between these two long-standing traditions that are like dying arts, and she's like, well, one of them doesn't really hold the same romanticism or the same love for me that the other does. So which one do I go with? And so I really appreciated her understanding of having to uphold tradition and having to struggle and learn, and also respect and then enjoy as well, and have tranquility and reflect. And so I'd like to take those values and put them into the real world, because so much of the time I'm always so busy, and so it's nice to just sit down maybe with a peppermint tea or just a podcast or an audiobook and just sit down and appreciate the moment that I'm in. And I haven't been doing that a lot because I've just been so busy. So it was nice to sit down and kind of sink into this book and feel how wholesome it was and just have a moment with it. And I'm definitely going to reread it because this is one of my new favorites of 2022. I adored it so much, and it's something that's so easy to go back and reread as well. And then the next question is only one can win, which is hero in a love triangle that you wanted to win the girl's heart. Here's the thing. I hate love triangles unless all of them in the triangle get together as a group. I don't care. I just don't like it to drive tension. If it's done in a way that is respectable and that characters aren't petty and that they're understanding and they grow with each other, then maybe I can respect that. But I just want all of the characters to get into a relationship together. Why isn't that more of a thing? Why does it have to be one girl being fought over by two guys? Like, why? Why can't it be something a little bit more open than that? So that is my general qualms with love triangles. And then we've got otherworldly, which is hero who is from another world compared to the main character or the side characters. And I've just started this book as well, so you're getting a treat into what I'm currently reading. But I'll be reading this one for a while because it's quite long, and it's Ruin of Kings. So we open this story, it's kind of like a story within a story within a story, but it's done in a way that's very gripping. So the protagonist is named Kieran, and he is in a jail cell, and his jailer is named Talon, and Talon is a woman who is a demonic shapeshifter, and she's been alive for 1,000 years. So she fits this question, and that's why I'm using Ruin of Kings. But this is told in a reflective manner from a scholar, I think, and he's done the opening paragraph, and then we jump into their story. So apparently this massive event happened, and then these two are like the key witnesses to that event. So this scholar is chronicling everything that happened to both of them, and then both of them are reflecting on how they met and what brought them to this jail cell. So it is a reflective story, and then it's them telling us a story. So I don't know when everything is going to get caught up or the whole story is set in here. It'll be interesting to see how that narrative device continues, because I know that this is a 4 or 5 book series that's completed. So I'd be interested to see where that goes. But Talon is a character that is very dark and evil and is not shy of torturing people and like going out and killing people and wearing their skin and organs in order to get answers out of someone. So she already scares me. She's definitely not human. And then the third last question is I'll think about it, which is the reluctant hero to walk a path that is asked or required of them. And for this one, I've gone with Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and the main character is Alex Stern, and she does not want to be responsible at this university at all. But because she can kind of see ghosts and has been able to since she's been a kid, she gets brought into this secret society of magic, and all of the different factions at Yale University have magical societies attached to them. There's 5 of them that they kind of have to oversee, and hopefully nothing goes wrong, but of course something goes wrong and there's a body. So Alex Stern has to collaborate with Darlington, whose family history have been looking after this state of affairs, and now she's been brought in to help. just because it's easier to have more than one person helping. So because of that, I'm choosing her, because she didn't want this responsibility, but she's been brought into it anyway just because she's got this ability. So Alex Sturt, or Galaxy, which is her name, definitely fits. But because I hadn't read that book for like 2 years, it took me a very long time to think about who the answer for this question would be. Then we've got No Danger for You, which is a hero that you want to protect at all costs, and for me, that will be Falkio Valmond from the Greatcoat series. Falkio is a character that is so sardonic, sarcastic, and just happy-go-lucky at the best of times, but he tends to put his foot in it like 100% of the time, or 110% even, because he just gets himself into situations fighting for other people and for his ideals and for the state of the world that he wants to make better. But because everyone is gunning for their own personal agendas and for power, he often just gets caught up in that and used as the scapegoat in very violent ways sometimes. So he really just needs to have a blanket wrapped around him and given a nice cup of tea. Like, he needs 5 minutes. So I would choose Falkio, because if I need something emotional, I tend to reach for the Greatcoats books. So you know that Sebastian de Castell is going to put Falkio through it. And then the last question on this tag is Not Always Kind, which is a hero who is very rough around the edges. And for me, this was actually a pretty easy pick. Like, the first question was an easy pick, so it's nice to bookend them. But my easy pick for this answer is Vin, because Vin is a street urchin and she's our protagonist, or one of them, in Mistborn. And she's trying to survive on the streets of Luthadel, and Kelsier, one of our other protagonists, finds her because she uses magic in a very subtle way, and he saves her effectively, and she joins his crew to basically rebel against the Lord Ruler, who has kept this city under his rule for 1,000 years because he's got some kind of immortality granted to him. So you follow this thieving crew who is trying to overturn and start a revolution, and it's a religious revolution and a power revolution, and it's just incredible that the scope of this world and this trilogy becomes. So Mistborn, Vin is definitely rough around the edges. She takes a long time to trust, and so I loved that story arc for her and her own identity growing over the course of the books. Amazing. So that is it for this tag. Let me know if you're going to do it down below. It's a difficult tag to do, but thank you again so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.